Hello, everyone. I'm Alex with ShipHawk, and excited to welcome everyone to this workshop, this webinar today. Really focused on peak season. Just for some quick introductions, gonna just kick it off here, and then I'll hand over to Nelson to do a quick introduction. So I'm Alex, VP of Marketing and Business Development with ShipHawk. I've been with ShipHawk about 4 years now. I've seen now, 4 periods of some really peak demand from ShipHawk customers. Prior to that, worked on the ERP side as well, which is another huge factor here in having the right systems and process in place. So I've seen a lot of peak seasons over the course of my career, and they're always challenging. So Nelson, turn it over to you to do a quick intro, and then I can do a little bit more context on just what we're going to focus on this session today, and then we have a couple of presentations shared we'll share out as well. So Nelson, turn over to you to do an intro.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, my name is Nelson Valderrama. I'm the founder of Intuilize, and I have around 29 years of experience in the distribution space in the US and Canada, and we help out mid-sized distributors with the price and inventory optimization. And again, we feel blessed to be here with Alex and sharing a couple of thoughts about how you guys can do better, right, during peak season.
Perfect.
You, Alex.
Excellent. Okay, so the focus of the session, Nelson and I have been talking about this concept for a while now, and we've been planning this over the summer months as well. And so it's crazy we're already here, that peak season is here. I was looking at the calendar, and Christmas is less than 2 months away right now. And we are basically exactly 1 month away from Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which is crazy that we've already arrived at this point again. And there's lots of reasons why they call it Black Friday, and I think the one thing that kind of takeaway that I've really had in preparing for this is, regardless of your peak season, because some companies and customers that ShipHawk has, their peak season looks very different, or they might have two peak periods. They have a Q4 peak and then they have a summer peak season. Regardless of whenever your peak season is, it's important to treat that season as a really make or break season and really plan on what happens if our order timelines, our orders spike and our timelines for when you ship those orders all kind of hit at once. Are you really ready and prepared for that? And it's not just about the technology and the software, it's also really about the people, process, and finally technology that supports that. So Nelson, turn things over to you to start to talk through how Intuilize views this peak season, and then I'll also share my thoughts as well. So
awesome, perfect. Definitely. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the intro. So we put a couple of slides here together for, Alex and I share a couple of ideas with you guys. And he mentioned that this peak season could be anytime, right? For people that are maybe into more consumer direct business, is going to be November and December. But again, there are some of our customers with peak season happens to be December and January because of, the winter season, right? That happen in the Jansen, and happen in a lot of the fasteners as well. So whatever is your, peak season, this is something that you guys can work on. And the whole idea is, how can you do that without sacrificing margins? So typically in your business, the busiest week of your year, volume hits 3 times, right? Then your phone rings, right? That's what we said. And you have the inside sale, the outside sale, so the owner. And this is what we have been seeing over the time as a confessions, right? When that volume hits, 3 times, we're firefighting manual updates, right? And instead of focusing on growth, we have a new competitor in TAR. I'm not sure, what price we should be, using, right? This is the biggest time, right? That we waste time because we're looking into business rules and pricing rules, and we don't have that chance. Or, how can I, optimize those, 1,200 price decision Excel manually during the ERP system, when I am prior to my peak season, right? So that's kind of the confession that we have, and I'm pretty sure if I ask the audience, I'm pretty sure you guys have other examples that we can add here. But we start with that, and then we go into why this is important. And again, we wanted to go into the financial aspect of things. This is important. This is important because it's about the profitability of the company, right? In this case, we are using this waterfall diagram, where we're saying here, this is your base price. Let's assume this is $100. You have some kind of delay execution. That means that you are slow to update your pricings in your ERP system for your vendors. And today, I think everyone in the supply chain, regardless if you're in the B2C and B2B, you're receiving price update from vendors every single week, right? Because tariffs, because supply chain disruption, because the inflation that we're experiencing. So this delay execution is going to take based on our data between $3 to $4. So we put here $3.5 just out of your profitability. The second one is the weak execution. This is about how can you manage those top products and customers with the volume transaction that is overwhelming. So typically when you're in a peak season, this is regular. In a peak season, this execution gets weaker because you have this window of a month, 2 months, 3 months where you need to make maybe 40 to 60% of all your revenue, and you want to get the order, right? And when you want to get the order and you have a salesperson, definitely you wanted to make sure your pricing is on point. And sometimes happen the weak execution is you don't have that pricing set up properly in your system. The third one is price overrides or discounts, and this is one of the biggest leakage that you guys have. Going back to the same thing, if you don't have the process governance or you don't have the alignment with your salespeople, it's very easy just to drop prices, right? And happens with Alex and with myself. We're dealing with a lot of customers out there, and if we have some pressure to get our quota, one of the levers that you wanted to get is the pricing part, right? And so that happens to everyone's in the marketplace. And here's the final price. So what we're trying to get the point across here is that this is a lot of money that you're leaving on the table, and this typically is exacerbated during the chaos that peak season can create on you guys. So moving from finance, let's talk about customer relationship risk. That's the other thing. When you have this peak season, right, and you have inconsistent delay quotes. I was talking with a prospect today and said, Nelson, we have an issue here because we have inconsistent quotes. I mean, we have same product, different prices per quotes for different people, right? So when you're in peak season, right, and you have these B2B, B2C customers asking you for quotes, asking on price and availability, they want to have consistency. That's what the human are looking for, consistency. So when you don't have that, you start eroding that trust. The second thing is the customer confusion. It's like, why are those pricing consistent? And maybe it's a peak season for you and as well for your customer, right? And typically people start shopping around more now than ever, right? When you have a slowdown economy, people start shopping around, and that's the trust erosion, right? This silent relationship damage, right? That you don't have complaints, you don't have anything from them, and then that customer becomes vulnerable to a competitor approach. And we have seen this over and over, right? With this peak season timeline compressed from months to days to that relationship damage, right? Where people have been shopping for you or buying from you for a long time, but this also can erode that. And it doesn't mean that you're going to lose the customer here, but again, this trust, as you guys know, it takes months or years to build, right? And it just take a couple of few things to start eroding that trust. So this is the other thing that we want to discuss or share with you guys for you guys to contemplate. So let's talk about peak season readiness, how that looks like. So this is something that we as a team come up with just to see if you guys resonate with it. So let's imagine you're starting today on a Tuesday, 9 a.m. You have your first price crisis, right? Customer calls, demand an explanation for a price increase. You scramble to the spreadsheet to ensure the logic behind the pricing, right? And you're, wait, we did the pricing that way? Why? Right? And you are started scrambling on that one. It goes after your lunch, competitive panic, right? You get someone coming to you and saying, you know what? So this customer, this compared to this such and such, should we match this pricing? Yes or no? And you start, yeah, let's match that one because we need to get that order, right? And then 5 p.m. is like, end of the day, worry. It's like you go and say, did I price those quotes right? Did I, didn't leave money on the table? And this go on and on every single day when you don't have a process in place, when you don't have a governance in place. So let's compare that with someone or a company that is in the other side of the equation, right? Where they have a strategic response, right? So they know how to handle that inquiry. They can explain to their, customer that has been reasoning behind the pricing. This has to do with tariff. This has to do with inflation. This has to do with these things that happen in the marketplace. And when you are able to explain that to your prospects, your customers, you're building trust with them. Same thing with the competitive panic. When you go into get some feedback about the marketplace, you know where you are, you know where your competitors are, and then you can respond that. In our case, we said if this is a core VIP customer, yeah, you may want to meet the pricing. But this is a guy that just come to you once a year, right? And he's just shopping around or she's just shopping around. Maybe you don't want to do that because that's a product that you can sell to someone at a higher margin. But you have peace of mind because you already know that that strategic, part is being done and has been executed. So again, I wanted to leave this with the audience. This is something that maybe you guys are saying, yeah, we feel like this, or maybe we feel like that. And that's kind of the important part here.
And Nelson, if I can
So
just interject there too,
yeah,
it's reactive on the left hand side and it's proactive on the right hand side, but it's not proactive. You're still reactive to the customer coming to you and asking you something, but you're prepared with a proactive response, knowing of course they're going to ask this, of course they're going to bring this up, and you have to be ready to prepare and talk about it. And the best salespeople probably do this already. The worst
yeah.
salespeople, well, I'm going to discount that $9.50. I'm gonna probably do $20 and just get the deal done and try to hit my quota and move on to the next month. And if I were an operator, I would be operating with a lot of end of the day worry if that was the case. So I think it's a good call
Yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly. And then this one what we have seen over and over is even in organizations as small as 15 inside sales, outside sales, up to more than 100, is that at the end of the day, humans, they want to have certainty, right? And so you have those guide rails in place and you have the process governance in place, as you define, Alex. They have that. It will be easier. It is to be able to respond to those things. So they are much better prepared to get to those responses, right? Because this is coming your way no matter what. And it's a short period of time, right? 1, 2, 3 months to get that part. So that's the whole idea. So I think one of the things I want to invite everyone here is just you need to choose, which side you want it to be, right? To work. That's pretty much the decision you wanted to take. And this is some of the results that we need to share with you guys. This is a result for a distributor with 12 million in annual sales, third generation running the business, serving more than 600 end users, right? So it's kind of description of the customer. The opportunity is that we found out, $250,000 in gross margin opportunity. This is a combination of prices that they were not able to charge to their customers, right? Because they were running in the left-hand side. Everything was reactive instead of something proactive. We were able to implement with this in 9 weeks, and we deployed in February this year. And the results is huge, right? They see 70K in gross margin lift in 4 months. Adoption rate, which is what you're referring, Alex. Means that 90% of the transactions were conformance to that, and people like to do that. When they see results, they're ready to do, repeat and rinse and so forth. The owner was in the driver's seat on the price guidance all the time. There was no disruption. Some of the people that feel threatened or they feel scared because, oh, you are going to lose a customer. Oh, customers are going to be mad with me. And that doesn't happen. It's the opposite. Customers want to have some predictability what you're going to do with them, right? Capturing that tribal knowledge of decades of hardware. That's something that we do, and this is extremely important. And I think you'll be talking about that later as well, Alex. How important is this? When you have someone that has been working for you 10, 20, 30 years, when you talk to them, they have so much wisdom and knowledge, how you're capturing that. And that's what we wanted to do, across the whole process that they have. How you attract talent, that's the other thing, right? I mentioned to an owner last week about this is like you're attracting people and you want them to memorize your pricing and you want to memorize the products or you want to memorize them, what is the process of shipping something because I run a warehouse. They don't want to do that. They wanted to have something that is more 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can do and I can replicate and I can work on, and how to automate or semi-automate those processes along the way. Especially younger generations, they don't like to do repetitive stuff. Again, I just wanted to put it out there, and I'm pretty sure the owners listening to this workshop, they are going to be emphatic about this. And this is the last part that I wanted to share with you guys. So this is the whole diagram. I wanted to focus here. So we put something that you guys actually can do. Right? So this is the basic structures in place to be ready for peak season. And I want to go over the whole thing, but I wanted to share with you guys. So we put an X where most companies are today. This is what we found out. And this is the peak season readiness, right? So where you guys should be based on a peak season. Peak season, as we define, is when you see 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times more volume, right? That you're experiencing normally. So the whole idea here is that for you guys that are listening, you have access to this deck. Is going and say, okay, do we have a customer segmentation or not? Do we have a product segmentation or not? You can call it classification, stratification. Again, there is a way that we can distinguish our different customers and products and just see, are we basic, are we intermediate, are we advanced? If you have none, you are not basic. Let's put it that way. So very easy to go here. And again, the rest of the stuff is price framework. Do you have a price framework here? Do you know what is your pricing strategy and your architecture. You do or you don't, right? Most companies are here in the basic, but for them, in order to respond, they need to be here in their intermediate, right? Price setting, most of the people are here. Price monitoring, most of the companies are here. For a peak season, you need to be here in order to be able to deliver 2, 3, 5 times the volume that you guys have. Price governance, I would say here's an X. Most of the companies that I talk with, they don't have any price governance, which is a big thing. And that's why I didn't put anything. Market intelligence, this is something that people ask us all the time. Oh, what is my competitive price? What is my competitors doing? Can you give me a market price? And I said, you have all that information. I said, what do you mean? Yeah, your salespeople is talking with your customers all day long and your prospects. Where are you capturing that information? In your CRM, your ERP, and they are like, no, you're losing a huge part here, right? In terms of what to do, especially in peak season, because you're getting all this feedback in a month to month, 3 months, what's going on in the marketplace. You should be here, but most of the companies are here. And the last one is price execution by sales team. So I think I would say most of the companies are here, but in peak season, and I think Alex, you just pointed out in terms of what people is doing, they should be here in order to really kind of excel on this one. So this is a framework that you guys can use if any of these concepts or ideas are interest of you and you want to dig deeper, reach out to us. Happy for us to have a conversation with you guys. And finally, right, peak season readiness requires two things. The first one is pricing discipline, which is what we have been describing the last, 10, 15 minutes. And the next one is operational capacity. And I think that's what, Alex is going to share with you guys.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Nelson. I'm going to share my screen out. So let's assume now, pricing and the sales side, you've actually really done your work and you followed a lot of those recommendations that Nelson just walked through. Now you get the problem of actually really being ready to ship and fulfill orders that are coming in the warehouse. And so I'm going to walk through how ShipHawk views this season. And I've already kind of alluded to some of this too, but I think there's being ready and there's really being ready. And I think back to this is a customer that we were just talking to recently, and they were talking about how much of a challenge this peak season is for them, and they see really kind of a few major peak season spikes per year. They're a sunglass company, and so you assume when the sun is out, people are going to buy more sunglasses, but they also see a period in Q4 where they have a traditional peak season as well this time of year because people are looking for gifts, and so they really have kind of these two major spikes in business. And you can see they go from 15 warehouse workers that are picking, packing, and shipping to 60 to 70 temporary staff. So they're basically supplementing by 4 or 5x their normal staff. And that just shows, testament to one, how well they're actually selling these items, but also two, how much of a challenge it truly is. And I'll kind of weave their story in here because I think it's important. And this is ShipHawk's mission, which is, making distribution centers faster and more accurate. You can't just have speed and you can't just have accuracy. You really need to balance those two. But what I would say that the value prop of ShipHawk, and I'll walk through how we see the peak season is, especially during those peak periods, because, the other 3 quarters of the year, that they're important for your business. But as Nelson mentioned, 40 to 50 to 60% of your sales might be happening in these peak periods, and you really, really have to be ready. So I'm going to walk through how we kind of frame this and how we think about this problem. And yes, the system like ShipHawk is certainly going to help with these things, but a lot of these things are really about the people in the process, less about the systems and the technologies underpinning this. Because at the end of the day, technology is just trying to enable what your processes and people are already doing. Just wanted to share this too because I've talked about some of the brands that ShipHawk works with, and a lot of these companies they face these peak periods, and these are some common names that are kind of inside the house, and you'd find them around, scattered around your home. And then on this side, these are companies that are working in ShipHawk that are kind of outside the house. And the challenge with a lot of these is they have those two peak periods where they see during the summer months when the days are longer and people are spending more time outdoors. And then again in Q4 they're going to see another peak. And so it's really kind of almost two scenarios where they're facing these challenges. So I wanted to show some kind of typical ShipHawk customers and what we see from them. So let's kind of break this down and why is peak season so critical? And I think Nelson's kind of really talked through that already, but also why is it so hard and what can you do from an order fulfillment perspective to actually prepare for that? So we started to talk through this, but I think it's really this perfect storm of why is it so hard? Um, it's this period where demand is spiking, sometimes out of nowhere, and we can see this in our customers. Literally the kind of normal order volume, normal orders coming in, and then all of a sudden things start to ramp up, and it's never just overnight, but you look back week over week, and suddenly volume just spikes immediately. The challenge with a lot of that too is the timelines and the SLAs. The customers, they need these items and they want them quickly. The expectation is always there that I'm going to get this, the Amazon effect. And this is not a direct quote from a customer, but I think this is pretty emblematic of what you'd see, not just for D2C or B2C type of customers, but even for B2B customers. Call it the Amazon effect, call it whatever you want, but just the immediacy. And people always want more. They want it faster, they want it cheaper, and they want it without any issues or delays. They just want it now, and that's applying to all industries, all ecosystems, regardless of the end consumer or even a B2B consumer. And so these are five reasons why I think it's so hard. I'm going to break these down and kind of walk through why is it so challenging? What can you do to start to prepare to actually improve some of this, and kind of a key insight related to this. And again, we've already talked through just the increased demand and the time sensitivity. So huge spike in orders, usually substantially higher. Nelson said, 2 to 10x, and it could be even higher too. And there's this time sensitivity of I have to get it by this period because, and I'm going to even do fast shipping because I just can't miss this critical date because I waited too long or whatever might have happened upstream. There's a huge element of labor, and I'm going to break this down a little bit more detail as well. But again, back to that story of this customer that was adding 60 to 70 warehouse workers. That's a massive amount of workforce management change that you need to have to happen over this time period. But even 2 or 3 additional warehouse staff, how do you make sure they are productive and actually impacting and improving things, not getting in the way of actual order processing? Talk about inventory management. This is probably a deeper session we need to do in the future too, and we can talk about the inventory management side as well. But how do you actually make sure you're not stocking out of items and you're planning ahead? And then the last thing is just the process. Where is your process breaking down? Because during this period of peak execution, those issues are going to get even worse. That back pain that you experience when you're picking up something light, it's going to be worse to pick up something heavy. And how do you make sure you're really preparing to address those process bottlenecks? So I'm going to walk through each of these in a little bit more detail. And we've talked about the increased demand here, but I want to just come up with a few recommendations here. I think the knee-jerk response is always, let's just throw some more people at it. I've heard, talk to many companies where during peak periods, they literally have the office staff, the back office staff come in and pick, pack, and ship orders. And that's good. They're getting orders out the door, but it really isn't solving the root cause. So don't just immediately say, well, let's just put more people. Is it really the best use of CFO's time to actually go pick orders? Probably not. But I've heard this from many customers that they will literally pull in a C-level person or even a director of operations to actually go pick and pack orders. One key takeaway, and that's why I bolded it here too. A lot of this is happening because you have a lot of manual touches, manual processing, everything from how you receive inventory to how you actually ship that inventory out. It's because there's not really any rules or workflows driving a lot of this. A lot of this is just manual tribal knowledge, and you can throw more people at it. It's going to be hard to train them. What happens if they leave? What happens if now you have that peak season staff that they moved on and they're just not available anymore? You really didn't put in place an automated process to actually have rules in place, business rules and shipping rules, fulfillment rules. The last kind of key recommendation here too is, a lot of warehouses are very tribally oriented. Well, this person knows where this goes away because we have the same 2 receivers that receive all these items. The pickers know where to pick from. That's fine and that's good. But again, when you're 5, 10x the order demand and you have temporary staff, it's just going to be a worst case scenario. So you really need to think about your warehouse very thoughtfully and where should you be putting different items in different inventory. So just the last key insight here, which is the automation and system direction. The system should be driving a lot of the stuff that your best warehouse worker staff are already doing, and that's already in their head, and that's being extracted into the system itself. All right, next the time sensitivity aspect here. So of course everyone wants their immediate item right away, and a lot of this requires real-time visibility and what I would call kind of rapid action on orders. Um, and so some recommendations here. I think it starts way upstream. Um, because before you actually ship an item, there's a lot of things that happen. Nelson walked through the sales side. It could be an e-com order, it could be a inside sales rep actually receiving an order before it even gets to the warehouse. And a lot of our customers before ShipHawk, they would actually try to receive an item, an order coming in, and they would actually call the warehouse staff and say, "How much would it be if I put this pallet together and ship this to a customer?" That's super time consuming. It's, spending the warehouse workers time doing this. You can't do this during peak season. The warehouse staff is going to be shipping orders. They don't want to be answering the phone around, okay, we built out the pallet and this is how much it's going to be shipped. A lot of tools will actually enable a lot of this process. And so you really need to make sure these departments are collaborating well before the peak season hits. On the shipping side too, a lot of carriers will gladly charge you a premium during this period as well. And so you need to really be careful that you are being cost efficient and cost effective. You don't want to, erode your whole margin that you had on all your orders with now the shipping costs because you had to rush orders or because you're not rate shopping different rates against each other, things like that. And you need to make sure you're really protecting your margins with good shipping. And the last point on that too, whether it's in cart or even your salesperson receiving an order, you can put in place these tools and systems that will make sure the salesperson or the e-com order you don't actually lose money on shipping. So just some kind of key recommendations, but I think it all comes down to faster doesn't have to just mean more costs or ship it out faster or rush processing or anything like that because you might have a VIP customer that comes in. You want to make sure you're giving that same service level as that customer that's ordering for the first time, or might never come back. But you need to make sure you're having these good SLAs that are meeting the time sensitivity. Okay, we talked about this a little bit, but I also want to talk through the workforce management. Peak seasons will require probably some temporary staff, and that's totally fine. How are you actually onboarding? How are you training them? How easy is the system to use? How are you actually motivating the core team staff to also be productive during this time period? Because now there's a bunch of people that they're expected to train on in addition to doing their day job. That's not great for them necessarily. And I think really it's about balancing the temporary labor with the permanent staff and making sure the operation remains very efficient because you can't have temporary staff getting in the way. They need to be actually supplementing what's happening. So a lot of this comes down to the system and the process and the tool that you're actually using to drive a lot of that. And again, we see this with a lot of our customers. They add temporary staff, but they ramp in, less than a day because the system's easy to use and they're just following what the system is telling them to do. And this really reduces the not just, the how many orders you can get out the door. It also is going to reduce the number of errors. So more orders and less errors. And that's the best case scenario. That's how you process more orders accurately.
Yeah, and on this one, I wanted to pause here, Alex, because I don't know about your customers or people that you talk in the marketplace, but at least for all of the customers that we have, and I would say most of the prospects that we talk, when we talk about labor, especially in the US and Canada, and there are particular areas in the country which is nearly impossible to find, right, the proper labor here, right? So it's not about even if you wanted to go hire 5, 10, 10 people is you are fighting for that qualified people because you don't want to get someone that just are completely new. You can, but you need to have a super streamlined training process to get them up to speed in order to receive and ship out things, right? So what is what you're hearing when you talk with your customers and prospects about really the labor part? Because that's all about it. It's a finite number of people that are living in the US willing to do this kind of job, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever heard somebody say, oh, we have zero issues with, workforce management or labor management because we have plenty of warehouse people we can find, and we have people lining up at our door that want to work here. It's just the reality of the market overall. There just aren't enough, and then there's high turnover. There's just a lot of challenges, and I think regardless of market, and we have a lot of customers that are in these major distribution center hubs, where Salt Lake City and LA and Nashville and it's very competitive. It's very costly. There's a reason why, Amazon churns through so many workers that they do. It's just the reality of the market. And I think sometimes the reaction is, let's put in place robotics or more kind of automation or conveyors or things like that. I think that the problem is, one, they're really costly, and two, you still need people to actually operate alongside of those too. And so I think that's
Yeah.
why it doesn't have to be just a system necessarily, like a ShipHawk solution. It also could just be really making sure that your processes, your SOPs, all the documentation, they're really solid before you just add a bunch of staff. But yes, the I think all of our customers face this challenge of not having enough talented warehouse staff, and you should probably assume your best warehouse worker might leave tomorrow, and that might be tough.
Yeah.
What are you doing when peak season hits and your best warehouse worker is out sick, or your best, three people are suddenly out of the office? And I think we saw this during COVID as well, where all of a sudden
Yeah.
now a lot of people had COVID and had to go home, and so kind of this worst case scenario. That's why you saw all these supply chain issues for sure as well. So
Yeah, and I want to reiterate what you said. I mean, even though ShipHawk and Intuilize are in the technology business, honestly, I think both companies definitely are trying to highlight the importance of anyone listening to this workshop about the training aspect of things, the process aspect of things, the readiness aspect of things. Because at the end of the day, we as a humans, we wanted to work for a company that is enabling us, right? That is making sure that our gifts are being used properly and our time is productive, right? I mean, I run warehouses, and the worst thing that can happen is that you work, never for 9, 10 hours and having everything packing out. And then suddenly you don't able to ship out the product. You have customers calling and you say, where is my package? I couldn't find it out. And because someone, unfortunately, instead of ship it out through this, you know, parcel company use a different one, or they forgot to put add a label, or forgot to put something like that. That's the miserable aspect of things, because you are running to make this happen. In the other side, success look like that everyone is working here, the temporary people, the permanent staff, everyone, and you're able to get your customers happy, right? So I think that's kind of, it is what it is, right? That the choices that companies made to make either one experience or the other experience, and especially in peak season.
absolutely, yeah. Peak season is a magnifier and just puts everything on the magnifier.
Exactly. That's what we wanted to say to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Also touch on inventory management here, which is, obviously you want to make sure you're never running with too much inventory, and you're never running with not enough inventory, and trying to find this perfect point of balance. And it's never going to be perfect, but the better you can get to it. And this is really about the planning side, but also the execution side as well. And again, this is probably a whole other workshop we need to do in the future, which is really about inventory management. And a lot of stuff is prior to ShipHawk, even around reorder points and supply and demand chain planning and things like that. But it's really about making sure you don't end up in a place where you are stocking out of something. Um, and how this translates into the warehouse itself is, uh, sometimes, as I mentioned before, well, let's do this pallet and let's put it here because it's an empty space. The system should be driving that. The system should be recommending this. If you're putting all of this tribal knowledge or system knowledge, if you're putting it into a tool like ShipHawk, it's going to say, this is a slow moving item, put it in a backstock location, or put this in a forward pick location, or put this right here, or even, what, let's ship this out again right away because there's actually back order demand. Let's not put it away and then go have to pick it and pack it and ship it later. Let's just put it in a cross-dock situation where we're essentially receiving it and we're putting it right back out the door and staging it to go right back out the door. Because really this comes down to, you want to make sure your warehouse is not the constricting factor in getting more orders out the door. And that's a kind of perfect practical example that we see every day. And then I already mentioned this too, but I think just the collaboration between sales and procurement and inventory, everyone's under this pressure, and it gets really bad during this time period. And so you need to almost plan ahead and say, well, what happens if orders spike to the point where we can't talk as much as we normally would? And how do we make sure we're running our SOPs? So really, ShipHawk's perspective on this is, bin by bin and rack by rack, you need to make sure you are using, very good inventory management processes to protect your revenue and your margin, because you don't want to carry too much inventory and you don't also lose sales, and find that perfect balance. All right, lastly, the process bottlenecks too. I think this what's bolded here is probably the most important part is it's something we do even internally with ShipHawk. We're a platform or a software tool. For our own internal purposes, we take our, ShipHawk's demand on our servers and we say, okay, what would happen if it 5x's or 10x's in volume? And let's actually stress test the system and see what issues might come up. And we might never see that kind of volume from our entire customer base, but let's plan on that potentially happening and let's see where things break down. And you do this from, just intuition, observation, KPIs, really going down to the root cause of where did things actually slow down? Was it receiving? Was it picking? Was it put away? Was it the packing process? Was it the shipping process? Was it even just how long it took for the system to print out a label, a shipping label? Where were those bottlenecks that really slowed down? Where were people facing exceptions that they shouldn't have been? And then go attack those bottlenecks super aggressively. And you can't solve all of them overnight. And it's definitely whack-a-mole. You're going to find, three more. But if you systematically attack them and make sure you're pressure testing or those simulations, do this, during these non-peak periods, and then when it hits the peak period, you'll be a lot better. You'll be in a lot better place. And things are still going to come up. Exceptions, issues, they always arise. Go deal with those. Don't be dealing with, okay, we just can't get enough orders out the door, or we keep misshipping things because we have untrained staff that are using a clunky system. All right, just one last slide. We've already talked through this, but there's the where can ShipHawk help? It's receiving all the way through to the shipping process and then making sure you're kind of closing the loop with audit and reconciling carriers. So we talked through a lot of these aspects, but I think it's really this entire fulfillment process. And then in the middle here is the customer process too, whether you're, got an e-com cart, whether you're receiving orders, whether you're doing EDI orders, how are you making sure it's the best customer experience possible? Because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, is to ship to our customers and the demand that we're facing. So last slide here, which is kind of closing the loop on that customer they mentioned that adds so many temporary staff. They were just completely capped. They couldn't do more than 10,000 orders per day with their legacy systems and their legacy process. And on ShipHawk, in 48 hours, they were able to basically quadruple that. So pretty much overnight. And again, a lot of this came down to some of their processes changed, some of their training, some of their people and the way they interact with the system, that really had to change. But really, ShipHawk wants to make sure this is the success story that we're seeing from a lot more of our customers. So I'll end there. Nelson, any other questions or thoughts come up as I was going through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of thoughts that I think really I would say I wanted to share with you and the audience. The first one is I love what you said, that what you guys do as ShipHawk, simulating what happens if you have 5 times more volume, right? Looking into servers and process and so forth, right? I will say that companies can do that. That's definitely a proactive way to do it. But if we have people in the audience saying like, I don't know how to do that, right? I don't have the bandwidth or I don't have the process in place. Something I would recommend them to do is looking at whatever past history they have for a peak season. You can do that as well, right? So you already went through your peak season, you didn't have any of this, you can learn from it, right? You can go back and say, okay, if you have a system in place, even just a basic ERP system, maybe you have a WMS or a TMS, you can go back and say, okay, what are the things that happen? Where the, big influx of demand came from? And, talk with your team, right? What are those things that happen? What were the bottlenecks that they experience on the process and the technology side? Because I think that's going to be something that also help them out to have a conversation, right? If things are breaking down on the sales part, or things are breaking down when they are processing the orders, or things are breaking down when they are processing the orders and so forth, right? And I think that will allow them to get a use case, right? To talk with ShipHawk, right? If they are talking with their employees, I mean, I can imagine, which I did in the past. You just sit down with everyone in the warehouse, invite them from a lunch for the dinner, wherever you want to see a barbecue in California. That's what we did, kind of barbecue. And we were talking, and I was asking them like, what are the things that broke down the last time? And they will tell you, was inspection. The printers, were malfunctioning. The screen is too small for us. Just as you say, Alex, I mean, the whole configuration, the warehouse is screwed up because anything that is, high moving items should be on the front, very close to peak, and, to move in the warehouse, and the stuff that is slow moving should be upstairs or it should be at the back of the warehouse. People will know. I mean, between data and people, I think a lot of the companies that maybe are, watching this workshop or or listening to this, I think they can do that. That's something that definitely they can do, right? And that will help them out to say, okay, what are the, and that's a question that I have for you, Alex. So when you talk with your prospect, what are the typical pain points or the typical things that they experience on a peak season that they will tell you? So just for the people kind of to reference those things.
Yeah, I think we talked through, labor management and,
Yeah,
how do you manage the staff? I think that's critical. And then, the inventory management too. And um I think as you're talking through this, and one thing, just completely call a spade, it's too late to, manage peak season right now, a month away from Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
yeah,
You can make some process tweaks or changes, and I encourage you, customers and prospects to do that right now. Obviously, putting in place a ShipHawk system or something like that, it's too late right now. But being mindful of what would happen if we X amount more, volume per peak season, it's not too late to make a change for your next peak season, whether that's, for the summer or whether that's,
exactly.
next year in 2026. And that's why I want to do this now. I think it's just being mindful of the fact that, like, uh, you can't make wholesale changes on your systems, process, technology today for peak season 2025, but you can do it for 2026. And so I think I would encourage, those that are listening to think through, what are you doing in 2026, whether that's a peak season you're going to face end of the year, or even before that, where you can start to pressure test this, because it's the labor, it's the inventory, it's the planning, it's the how you collaborate across different departments, things like that. I think those are the common pains we're seeing across customers.
Got it. Perfect. So if let's say a customer, a prospect goes through that process with you, Alex, when you talk to them, what are the one or two things that they will tell you, like the aha moments for them? What are the aha moments that they will say, man, this is something that we always dream about it, or my people share with me? What are those two, three aha moments that
Yeah.
people will say to you?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's, just as Intuilize is doing a lot of different things, and the background kind of operating, it could be, one or two really critical things. Like, a good example of this is Crumble Cookies is a customer of ours, and they had one major issue with shipping costs, and that
Mm,
was this thing they were really focused on, because their franchisees were overpaying for shipping costs. Um, and the franchisees didn't love that, because why am I paying so much for the shipping? It's a sweatshirt and some sprinkles, and I'm paying, $50 for shipping. And that was this one very particular pain point. But then there's a lot of customers. We know overall our entire process, there is just a ton of issues. And sometimes it's a journey to even figure those out. Um, the problem is just tribal knowledge, manual process, systems that are legacy. You put this combination of factors together, and you end up with just this overall thing where we don't know where the pain is. We just know it hurts kind of all over. And
yeah,
so I think we put kind of customers and prospects into those two different camps, which is, one very specific pain point, which we can help solve, but the others, they just know there's general pain. They're feeling pain all over their body. They don't know, is it because of one particular thing, or is it just overall they haven't been as healthy as they probably could have been. So is it acute,
yeah.
or a bit more chronic too? So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, I wanted to put it out there because I think we've seen the same thing. There are people that they already know what they are looking for, like in price optimization or inventory optimization, and they come to you saying, I experienced this thing for so many years, and I cannot control my pricing. I know that my people is overriding. I know that this is not going to work. I have these issues in the branches, or they come with more generic right symptoms that we wanted to go over it.
yeah.
Uh,
And one thing I'll just paste here in the comments as well is, we have a checklist of basically how to prepare for peak season, because again, it's
mm,
got this checklist of, okay, where are you experiencing the pain, and how bad is it? And I think, um, the more you can just try to get to the root cause, ask the five whys, get to the root cause, the better off you're going to be. So I can share that here in the chat as well. And
yeah.
helpful just to start to address where are the issues coming from. I'll place that right there.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that would be something super helpful. So I think for the audience that we have in the workshop, guys, if you guys have any questions or any comment, please use the chat. We have a couple of minutes that either Alex or myself we can go over any question that you guys have. Uh, let's see if we have some question here. So the last question that I have for you, Alex, in these regards, in terms of what you guys do, right? It's when you work with distributors, right? Which is what we serve today. and you guys talk about kind of the WMS, right? Uh, and you go and talk about, the challenges that they have and so forth. When you talk about like an implementation, what we're talking about, because some people here may say, man, I'm contemplating this for 2026, but again, it's going to cost me one arm and one leg, and it's going to take, 3 years, right? So I want to say this is not an ERP implementation. That's what I wanted to get into. So if you can just share that with the audience, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. ShipHawk has a few different solutions too, because we recognize some customers only want to focus on kind of one part of the process. So I'll use the
Yes.
example of we have a shipping tool, our TMS, which is really focused on packing and shipping. And a lot of customers, their inventory, it doesn't dictate that they need a full solution like ShipHawk WMS that's completely end to end. And so we saw that solution more standalone. Um, we also have a solution that's focused on auditing carriers too. It's a very specific thing that kind of
Yeah.
bolts on to ShipHawk. Um, Ideally, back to the kind of end-to-end process flow from receiving all the way through to the customer's doorstep or the customer's dock, where they're receiving the item, if they're a B2B customer. There's a ton of improvements that can be made, but I think it's this kind of crawl, walk, run approach. And so we have a lot of customers where, okay, we know packing, shipping is a challenge for us. So let's kind of start at that point, and then we can do the full warehouse management process. Because to your point, it's not an ERP implementation. It's not the same amount of length. It's not as complex, but there's a lot of considerations because it's really trying to replicate the entire warehouse process. It's the warehouse management, operating system essentially. And so
Yeah.
there is a detailed process to actually extract that knowledge, get in the system, and have the system start directing things versus the tribal knowledge directing things. So, typically implementation timelines could be anywhere from, 2 months, 3 months to could be even longer too, especially if you're doing an ERP project along the way as well. We have a lot of customers that come to us and say, I'm doing an ERP transition, so I also want to address
Exactly. Yeah.
the warehouse side of it as well. But it's a big consideration, which again, that's not like you're not going to use it in the next month or so because it's not like you're just buying one piece of functionality too. That's, we're going to do picking, we're going to improve picking because it's really this whole inclusive thing, which is you receive it, you put it away, you pick it, you pack it, you ship it.
Yeah.
Sounds easy on the surface, but each one of those has its own workflow, a bunch of different processes. Even the way ShipHawk can pick different orders. There's 10 different ways you can pick orders. So
Yeah.
what's going to be the right thing for your business, and how do you configure ShipHawk to appropriately address the warehouse process?
Yeah. No, but I think I love that. I mean, I think that's something that, again, both companies has in common is that we believe about these phasing things out, right? It's putting things in step one, step two, step three, right? And just crock and walk and then run because a lot of people wanted to have everything, right? I wanted to solve everything, and we know they wanted to, fix everything, but starting, little by little. And going back to what you said, I wanted just to make sure we repeat it again. A lot of this has to do with the processes that companies has already in place and whether it's starting, right? So technology is not going to come and solve the things. I think
Yeah.
so technology is going to put a magnifier, right, on the
Yes.
the holes that you have. And sometimes, customers, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear just this is a pill that's going to lose weight, and no, that's not going to happen, right?
There is no silver bullet for sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Nelson, then the reverse question, which is from an Intuilize perspective, how do you guys approach this when somebody comes to you and says, we need to start working this right now, and how do you approach that problem or that challenge?
Yeah, I would go. That's what we go with the readiness, right? So again, that's what put together the pretty much the slide, right, about the readiness part. So I can go over that one and again, just to kind of share with the rest of the audience, right? Oops. Let me go into. So we wanted to go over the readiness that they are experiencing at this point, and based on that one, we're going to say, where you are. Sorry.
You had the tab up and then and then closed it a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, oh no. Yeah, so we use this one, right? We wanted to see, what is the readiness that they have, and we, go step by step, right? Do you have a customer segmentation or product segmentation? I was talking with a prospect, and they're just doing this, just a customer segmentation, right? They have a basic one, just by revenue, they go there, and we say, yeah, that's fine. You have product segmentation, though I don't have that, and you need these two ones to do anything on pricing, right? So we go like, yeah. in a peak season, you need to be here. But if you don't have any, we cannot take you from zero to intermediate overnight because it's going to be a learning process that you guys have. Same thing in the price framework. That's where we go, right? So it seems, as you said, just going the analogy, it seems that it's an easy process. I have a product, I put a price, I set it in my system, and everyone is going to price it, right? Just the analogy you say, I receive things, I put away, I pick it up, I pack it and ship it, like 5, 6 steps that seems super easy. But there are workflows associated with this one within the company, right? How you are setting pricing in your ERP system, right? How you are monitoring this thing. And as I mentioned, one of the main holes that we find, and this being this year, and again, I'm impressed by that, is that there is no price governance, right? People is doing whatever they want. So I wanted to put in shipping. This is like anyone can put away product whatever they want.
Yeah.
I mean, for people that has run a warehouse, that's your worst nightmare because you cannot find parts. It's kind of the same thing. You need to have a governance of how you manage your inventory. You need to have a governance of how you manage your pricing, how you start your pricing, how you put your pricing, who is responsible for adding, taking out pricing, and so forth. And then the other one is the market intelligence, right? People ask like, I want to have all this. I wanted to know all my competitors' prices and all that. Yeah, you can try to do that. Where are you capturing that? So there are big holes in the processes that they have. And the whole idea here is where to start, right? And be truthful about that. And that's painful because I think everyone wants to be here, but it's going to take time to get there. So we use this one and people go over this one, half an hour call that we have with them. And basically it's quite, helpful, right? If they wanted to discover where they are, right? On that one and where to start. This is a good place to start. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Alex.
Excellent.
Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
your time. This workshop is recorded, so you guys will have access to this, and we share it. And again, if you guys have any questions about what ShipHawk does or what Intuilize does, please reach out to any of us, and we'll be happy to to answer you or jump in a call.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nelson. Appreciate it. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you to everyone for assisting. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.